Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NHOU. Sam is prepped to install new front control arms, hub assembly, sway bar links, and tie rod ends. He went to Mevotech to get the best quality parts for this Chevy 3500 truck. Mevotech parts are designed to resist the elements and ensure your vehicle will ride just as good, if not better, than factory.
Now, what goes bad on these trucks first is going to be the center bearing. You got the hub and bearing incorporated in one, it bolts onto the spindle, and these things go bad because the truck is so heavy, it gets used a lot, it's four-wheel drive, it probably sees off-road. I know it gets used a lot because it's got a big fifth wheel hitch in the bed. So we want to make sure he's safe. I went to Mevotech because they do the best when it comes to suspension components. The good thing about this stuff, because they are in Canada, everything is coated. So therefore, it's not going to rust on you. It's not going to get nasty on you. The way you see this is anodized and coated. It's going to look just like this if you ever have to replace it 100,000 miles down the road. The hardware comes with thread lock already on it, gives you new hardware, and they're coated as well. So if you ever have to service it, they're easily removed. All the joints have grease fittings to supply you with all the parts, the nuts, and a very cool cotter pin that's reusable, that's very easy to install and remove, unlike the OEM ones. Equipped with sintered bearings, you get extra endurance and durability with a tough self-lubricating bearing. Special locking boot, keeping grease in and contaminants out with the patented high-strength multi-lip boot that mechanically locks to the housing. More material, minimize loading and flex for a longer part life with application-specific material added to the ball joints, the control arms, stabilizer links, and the tie rods. Thicker hex forging. Save time on installs with a thicker solid hex forging that increases assembly strength while providing a counter hold for standard-sized wrenches. Rubber bushings on the control arms. The bearing comes with an ABS sensor already attached to it. Look at the hex incorporated into the lower control arm. This is where you'll be installing the torsion bar. Comes with grease fittings. Make sure you install them. Don't forget, guys, none of these new parts that you just spent a lot of money on are going to last if you forget to grease those new fittings. So what we have here is a 3500. It's a single axle. It is a four-wheel drive. Chevys have independent front suspension, so therefore you have a drive shaft that goes through the center of the bearing, and there is no room for a coil. So they use torsion bars, and a torsion bar is pretty much a bar that you twist to give yourself resistance, then it lifts up the truck. You have to remember that you have to treat it just like a coil spring. So you're going to bring this thing on the ground, you're going to put a jack underneath the control arm. There's a lot of tension on this because it's a very heavy vehicle. So when you bring it down, you put the jack up underneath it, you're going to put the pressure up on the lower control arm, taking the tension off the torsion bar, no different than taking the tension off the spring. Then you're going to remove the upper control arm, you're going to remove the sway bar end link, you're going to remove the tie rod end, and then you're going to remove the caliper. Everything here is heavy, so you want to make sure to hang the caliper so you don't destroy the brake line. Then once all that stuff is done, you lower the jack, everything will come off, the lower control arm will go down just like you see a coil spring deal, and the torsion bar is free. You can service the front end, put all the Mevotech parts on with the upper control arm, the sway bar end links, make sure everything's installed, make sure you install the grease fittings as well. The most important thing you need to know when it comes to tightening up the suspension after you've installed all the Mevotech parts is the upper control arm bushings and the lower control arm bushings are made of rubber. They are not urethane. They do not have greasable fittings on them, so you don't want to get them in a bind. You want to put the truck on the wheels, on the ground. You want to tighten it, but keep it a little bit loose so that when you're on the ground, you can retort everything with travel sitting flat. That way, when the suspension actually does travel, the rubber won't get into a bind, causing premature failure.